Bediuzzaman Said Nursi was a renowned Turkish Islamic scholar, thinker, and reformer who defended faith and Islamic values during the secular reforms of early Republican Turkey under Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. He was one of the most influential Muslim scholars of the 20th century. He was born in 1877 in the village of Nurs in eastern Anatolia, in the Ottoman Empire, which is now part of modern Turkey. His original name was Said Okur, but he later became famous as Said Nursi, after his village. The title, Bediuzzaman, means, wonder of the age, a title given to him because of his extraordinary intelligence and deep knowledge. From an early age, Said Nursi showed remarkable memory and sharp understanding. He studied Islamic sciences, Arabic, logic, philosophy, and theology. He became well known among scholars because he could answer difficult religious and intellectual questions with great confidence. He believed that Islam and modern science were not enemies, but could work together for the benefit of humanity. During the final years of the Ottoman Empire and the early years of the Turkish Republic under Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, Turkey went through major political and social changes. Religious institutions were greatly curtailed, Islamic education was restricted, and secularism became state policy. In this difficult environment, Said Nursi devoted his life to protecting Islamic faith and moral values. He wrote a famous collection of writings called the Risale-i-Nur, Epistles of Light, which explained the truths of Islam in simple and logical language. These writings became extremely popular among ordinary Muslims because they strengthened faith at a time when religion was under pressure. Because of his religious activities and influence, the Turkish authorities repeatedly arrested, imprisoned, and exiled him. Despite many hardships, he continued writing and teaching peacefully. He avoided violence and political rebellion. Instead, he focused on education, spirituality, patience, and moral reform. Said Nursi died in 1960 in the city of Sanliurfa. Even after his death, his ideas continued to influence millions of Muslims in Turkey and around the world. Essay on the Life, Work, and Struggles of Bediuzzaman Said Nursi. Bediuzzaman Said Nursi was one of the greatest Islamic thinkers and reformers of the modern age. He lived during a period of immense political and social transformation in Turkey. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the rise of secular nationalism, and the decline of traditional Islamic institutions deeply affected Muslim society. In this difficult period, Said Nursi emerged as a spiritual guide who dedicated his life to preserving Islamic belief and reviving moral and religious consciousness among Muslims. His efforts were not political in the ordinary sense. He did not seek power, nor did he organize armed rebellion. Instead, he struggled through knowledge, writing, teaching, patience, and spiritual reform. He believed that the greatest danger facing Muslims was not merely political weakness, but the weakening of faith itself. Therefore, his mission was to strengthen belief in God, revive understanding of the Quran, and defend Islam against atheism, materialism, and moral decay. Said Nursi was born in 1877 in eastern Anatolia. He belonged to a religious Kurdish family. From childhood, he displayed exceptional intelligence. He memorized books quickly and mastered many Islamic sciences at a young age. Scholars and teachers were astonished by his abilities. Because of his brilliance, he was given the title, Bediuzzaman, meaning, wonder of the age. In his early years, he became interested not only in traditional Islamic learning but also in modern sciences. He believed that Muslims had fallen behind because they had separated religious knowledge from scientific knowledge. According to him, both religion and science came from the same creator and therefore could not contradict each other. He often said that the light of conscience comes from religious sciences while the light of the mind comes from modern sciences, and that real progress requires both together. During the late Ottoman period, Said Nursi traveled widely and participated in intellectual discussions. He proposed educational reforms and wanted to establish universities where Islamic sciences and modern sciences would be taught side by side. He hoped this would produce a new generation of educated Muslims who were spiritually strong and intellectually capable. When the Ottoman Empire collapsed after the First World War, Turkey entered a new phase under the leadership of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. The new government adopted strict secular policies. Religious schools were closed. Islamic courts and institutions were abolished. The Arabic script was replaced with Latin letters. Public expressions of religion were discouraged, and many Islamic scholars were silenced. Said Nursi was deeply disturbed by these developments. However, unlike some others, he did not support violent resistance. He believed that violence would only create more destruction and suffering. Instead, he chose what he called the jihad of the word, meaning the struggle through education, moral guidance, and intellectual effort. This was the period when he began writing his famous collection, the Risale-i-Nur. These writings became the central work of his life. In them, he explained the truths of Islam in a language that ordinary people could understand. He used logical arguments, examples from nature, and spiritual reflections to strengthen belief in God, prophethood, the Quran, resurrection, angels, and the hereafter. The Risale-i-Nur was especially important because it addressed modern doubts and intellectual challenges. During the 20th century, many people were influenced by atheism, secularism, and materialist philosophy. Said Nursi responded to these ideas by arguing that the universe itself points toward the existence of God. He described nature as a book filled with signs of divine wisdom and mercy. One of the remarkable aspects of his work was his method of propagation. Since religious teaching was heavily restricted by the authorities, Said Nursi and his followers secretly copied his writings by hand and distributed them across Turkey. Thousands of people participated in this effort. In villages, towns, and cities, Muslims gathered quietly to read and study the Risale-i-Nur. This peaceful educational movement later became known as the Nur movement. Said Nursi's influence grew rapidly, and this alarmed the authorities. The government feared that any independent religious activity might challenge the secular state. As a result, Said Nursi spent much of his life under surveillance, imprisonment, or exile. He was repeatedly arrested and sent away from one region to another. He lived under forced exile in places such as Barla, Kastamonu, and Emirdağ. In many of these places, he was isolated from society and closely watched by police. Sometimes he was forbidden from meeting visitors or writing freely. Despite these restrictions, he continued his mission with patience and determination. Many of his most important writings were produced during exile. His students secretly carried his manuscripts from place to place. In this way, his ideas spread even while he was under government pressure. Said Nursi also suffered imprisonment several times. He was jailed in places such as Eskişehir, Denizli, and Afyonkarahisar. Conditions in prison were often harsh. He and his followers faced interrogation, isolation, and poor treatment. At times he was even allegedly poisoned. However, he remained spiritually calm and continued teaching fellow prisoners. He transformed prisons into places of learning and prayer. One of the most admirable qualities of Said Nursi was his patience. Although he faced injustice, he consistently rejected hatred and revenge. He advised his followers to avoid confrontation and maintain peace. He believed that moral reform could not be achieved through anger and violence. According to him, true Islamic service required sincerity, compassion, discipline, and wisdom. Another important aspect of his thought was unity among Muslims. He strongly opposed division and sectarian conflict. He believed that Muslims should focus on shared faith and common moral values. He also encouraged cooperation between religious people and sincere scientists, arguing that both seek truth in different ways. Said Nursi's writings also emphasized morality and spirituality. He taught that faith should not remain merely theoretical. True belief should transform human character and behavior. Therefore, he encouraged honesty, humility, patience, gratitude, and service to humanity. His message appealed not only to scholars but also to ordinary people because it addressed everyday spiritual struggles. Even though the Turkish authorities tried to limit his influence, his ideas continued to spread. By the later years of his life, many people across Turkey respected him as a spiritual teacher and defender of Islam. Political conditions also gradually became less harsh, allowing some religious expression to return to public life. Said Nursi died in 1960 in Sanliurfa. After his death, the authorities reportedly moved his grave to an undisclosed location to prevent it from becoming a major gathering place. However, this did not reduce his influence. Today, the Risale-i-Nur is read in many languages around the world, and millions of people continue to benefit from his teachings. The importance of Bediuzzaman Said Nursi lies not only in his scholarship but also in his method. He demonstrated that Islamic revival does not necessarily require political power or violent struggle. He showed that ideas, education, patience, and spiritual sincerity can have lasting influence. At a time when religion faced severe pressure in Turkey, he preserved Islamic belief through peaceful intellectual resistance. His life remains an example of perseverance under oppression. He endured exile, imprisonment, loneliness, and constant surveillance, yet he never abandoned his mission. Instead of despair, he responded with faith and constructive effort. Instead of hatred, he chose patience and wisdom. In conclusion, Bediuzzaman Said Nursi was one of the great Islamic reformers of modern history. Through his writings, teachings, and personal sacrifices, he helped preserve Islamic faith during one of the most difficult periods in Turkish history. His Risale-i-Nur strengthened the belief of countless Muslims and provided intellectual answers to modern challenges. Despite imprisonment and exile, he continued his peaceful struggle with courage and sincerity. His legacy continues to inspire Muslims around the world, reminding them that knowledge, faith, patience, and moral character are among the strongest forces for social and spiritual renewal.